You could feel it in the tone of that conversation. The Steelers aren't just casually browsing options at quarterback. They're staring at a crossroads. And when a name like Malik Willis surfaces as a top of the free agency market option, that tells you everything about where this franchise is right now. According to the discussion, the Steelers are expected to have interest in Malik Willis, the former Green Bay Packers quarterback who stepped in during relief appearances for Jordan Love and played efficient, controlled football. He's young, he's athletic, he's got a big arm. He completed a high percentage of passes in limited action. On the surface, that sounds like a sensible bridge option. But here's where it gets real interesting. The projected market value being discussed, around $35 million per year over 2 seasons. That's not backup money. That's not kick the tires money. That's commitment money. And for a quarterback with just a handful of NFL starts, that changes the entire conversation. If you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, and you've already lived through years of trying to patch the quarterback position on modest investments with mixed results, you have to ask yourself one question. Are you trying to survive, or are you trying to reset? Because handing out $15 to $20 million per year is one thing. That's comparable to the Justin Fields structure mentioned, short-term, manageable, flexible. But pushing toward $30 plus million annually? Now you're allocating premium resources to a player who, at best, is still a projection. And that's the tension. The Steelers have cap space. That's not the issue. The issue is priority. Do you commit big money to a quarterback who might just be a temporary fix when you still need help at left tackle, wide receiver depth, possibly inside linebacker depth, and other structural areas of the roster? That's where the cautious approach makes sense. If this year isn't the year to land a true franchise quarterback, then maybe the smarter long-term strategy is restraint. Play it boring, play it safe, avoid the multi-year anchor that prevents flexibility when the real opportunity presents itself. Because imagine finally identifying your guy in the draft next year and you're still carrying a $35 million quarterback contract from a stopgap decision. That's the nightmare scenario. And the conversation didn't stop there. Inside linebacker is another pivot point. The possibility of bringing back Landon Roberts was floated, and you could hear the respect in the breakdown. Roberts played through pain, played through injuries, brought physicality and attitude. He embodied that old-school Steelers identity, but he's over 30 now, coming off a season in Las Vegas, and likely not a long-term answer. Still, as a depth piece, as a tune setter, as a veteran presence for Peyton Wilson, that's intriguing. The bigger question circles around Patrick Queen. Is he underperforming relative to his contract? Possibly. Is he bad? No. But when you're paying $17 million per year, solid isn't always enough. And if you can save significant cap space while reshaping the room with a mix of draft capital and a strategic signing, that becomes a legitimate front office discussion. And then we get to the lightning rod. Alex Highsmith. The idea of trading him to the Carolina Panthers, a homecoming scenario, mid-round draft compensation, freeing up roughly $17 million, that's a business conversation. Not emotional business, but if you trade Highsmith while keeping TJ Watt on a massive cap number after a down season, are you truly optimizing the roster? Here's the hard truth that surfaced. There may not be a smart business decision left with TJ's contract structure. The cap hits are enormous. Cutting him now would be catastrophic. Trading him likely doesn't return the value fans expect. So you're essentially betting on resurgence. And maybe that's the bet you take. Because if TJ bounces back, this whole debate disappears. If he doesn't, then next year becomes a much heavier conversation. That's where the Steelers stand. At quarterback, at linebacker, at edge rusher. This isn't a single decision offseason, it's layered. Every move affects the next. So here's the real question for you. If you're running this franchise, do you make the bold move now at quarterback and risk the cap consequences? Or do you stay patient and ride out one more transitional year, hoping the true franchise solution is waiting around the corner? And that's where this entire thing becomes bigger than just Malik Willis or Landon Roberts or even Alex Highsmith. This is about identity. This is about direction. This is about whether the Pittsburgh Steelers are trying to stay competitive in the short term, or whether they're finally willing to endure discomfort to build something sustainable. Because let's be honest with ourselves, the Steelers have lived in the middle for a while now. Not bad enough to bottom out, not strong enough to truly contend, just hovering, just surviving. And sometimes survival feels productive, but it quietly delays real progress. If you go out and spend major money on a quarterback like Malik Willis, you're telling the locker room and the fan base, we think we can compete right now. But if that player turns out to be just average, you're stuck in the same exact spot. Competitive, respectable, nowhere near a Super Bowl. If instead, you sign someone cheaper, draft a developmental option, and accept that there may be growing pains, you preserve flexibility. You preserve draft capital. You preserve cap space. And most importantly, you preserve your ability to strike when the right opportunity presents itself. That's not flashy. That's not exciting, but it might be necessary. Now zoom back to the defense for a second, because while everyone argues about quarterbacks, the Steelers' identity has historically been defense, and that's where some of these contract conversations get uncomfortable. Trading Alex Highsmith is easier than trading TJ Watt. That's just financial reality. Highsmith's deal is movable, Watt's is heavy, but if you purely evaluate production versus cost from last season, it's fair to ask tough questions. That doesn't mean you're disrespecting TJ Watt, it means you're evaluating sustainability. And this is where Patrick Graham becomes fascinating. A new defensive voice, a new scheme, potentially more movement along the defensive front. If Watt is chipped constantly, double-teamed constantly, and asked to win in predictable alignments, that's on coaching as much as it's on the player. If Graham moves him around, creates mismatches, manufactures pressure, maybe we see a resurgence. If that happens, this whole worst contract narrative evaporates overnight. But the Steelers can't operate on hope alone. They have to operate on probabilities. At inside linebacker, the debate between Patrick Queen and Peyton Wilson isn't about who's terrible, it's about ceiling. Queen might be what he is, a good, sometimes inconsistent, starting linebacker. Wilson might have growth ahead of him, or he might not. That's the gamble. And that's why some argue the Steelers should just go spend on a top-tier linebacker and eliminate the uncertainty entirely. Stop patching, stop rotating, stop hoping. Go get stability. This offseason feels like a pressure test for the front office. Do they chase upside? Do they chase stability? Do they protect the cap? Or do they make a statement? Because here's the quiet reality. If they miscalculate again at quarterback, at edge, at linebacker, you're not just talking about another 9-win season. You're talking about losing years of prime talent. You're talking about wasting windows. And the fan base feels that tension. You can sense it in every debate. The loyalty versus logic argument, the emotion versus economics argument, the ride with our guys versus make the hard call argument, that's where the Steelers are living right now. And maybe the most fascinating part is this. There's no obvious correct answer. There isn't a clean, guaranteed move sitting on the table. Every path has risk. Spend big on a quarterback. Risk long-term cap flexibility. Stay conservative. Risk another mediocre season. Trade a defensive star. Risk locker room backlash. Keep everyone. Risk stagnation. This is the tightrope. So now I'm asking you directly, not emotionally, not nostalgically, if you had to choose today. Would you prioritize financial flexibility and patience even if it means short-term frustration? Or would you push the chips in right now and try to accelerate this turnaround, knowing the margin for error is razor thin? Let me know what side you're on. And if you're ready for part 3, because this conversation isn't slowing down anytime soon, and the longer you sit with it, the more you realize this isn't just about one offseason. It's about correcting the trajectory of an entire era. The Steelers don't lack talent. That's the frustrating part. There are foundational pieces on this roster. There are young players with upside. There are veterans who still command respect. But talent without alignment, talent without a clear plan, keeps you stuck in that 9-8 first-round exit cycle. That's why the quarterback decision carries so much weight. If you overspend now, you limit your margin later. If you underspend now, you risk wasting a season of prime defensive years. That's the balance. And internally, the Steelers have to decide whether 2026 is a bridge year or a push year, because the way you structure contracts tells the locker room exactly what you believe. Look at the ripple effect. If you go cheap at quarterback and allocate resources elsewhere, say left tackle, linebacker, maybe another corner, you're strengthening the infrastructure. You're betting that stability across the roster will elevate whoever is under center. That's a team-building philosophy. But if you chase a quarterback aggressively, you're betting on individual elevation. You're saying the right arm fixes everything. History in Pittsburgh leans toward infrastructure, defense first. Offensive line stability, run game, complementary football. But the modern NFL has tilted toward quarterback dominance, and that tension is sitting right on the Steelers' desk. Now factor in the emotional element. TJ Watt isn't just a player, he's a symbol. Alex Highsmith isn't just a cap number, he's homegrown development success. Patrick Queen isn't just a linebacker, he's a marquee free agent signing meant to signal ambition. Every move touches identity. If you trade Watt, you're signaling a shift in philosophy. If you trade Highsmith, you're prioritizing financial maneuverability. If you cut ties with Queen, you're admitting a signing didn't fully hit. Those aren't just transactions, those are statements. And maybe that's why this feels heavier than usual, because for the first time in a long time, the Steelers don't have an obvious North Star at quarterback. They don't have Ben Roethlisberger covering flaws. They don't have a Hall of Fame caliber offense masking structural issues. They have questions, and questions force honesty. This offseason will reveal how honest the organization is willing to be about where they stand. Are they one bold move away, or are they 2 years away and pretending they're closer? The fan base deserves clarity, not through press conferences, not through optimistic language, through action. action. If they keep flexibility, draft strategically, avoid bloated short-term splashes, and allow Patrick Graham to retool the defense, that's patience with purpose. If they swing big at quarterback, reshuffle contracts, and aggressively reshape the defense, that's urgency. Both paths are defensible, but only one can be chosen. And the most important thing, whichever path they choose, they have to commit fully. Half measures are what create mediocrity. You can't partially rebuild. You can't partially contend. The Steelers have lived in that gray area long enough, so now it's your turn. Are you willing to endure one more patient year if it means positioning the franchise for a real franchise quarterback and long-term sustainability? Or do you want them to make the aggressive move right now, even if it risks future flexibility? And if you zoom out even further, the draft becomes the silent variable in all of this. Because everything we're debating, the cap space, the contracts, the trades, the veteran signings, can shift dramatically if the Steelers hit on one or two major draft selections. That's the wild card that can erase mistakes or amplify them. Imagine this scenario. They stay conservative at quarterback, avoid the $30 million gamble, draft a developmental passer in the middle rounds, and that player shows flashes by December. Suddenly, the entire narrative changes. The patience looks calculated, the restraint looks smart, the fan base buys in because there's visible growth. Now flip it. They swing big in free agency, allocate significant money to a quarterback like Malik Willis, pass on a developmental prospect in the draft, and by midseason, the offense is still inconsistent. Now you've burned cap space and lost a chance to grow your own solution. That's why this feels like a fork in the road. The Steelers have historically trusted their drafting and development. They've built through the trenches. They've found value in the middle rounds. They've leaned on continuity, but continuity only works when the core is ascending. Right now, parts of the roster feel like they're plateauing. That's why the defensive conversation matters just as much as the quarterback one. If Patrick Graham successfully modernizes the defense, disguises pressure, rotates edge rushers creatively, protects linebackers with smarter alignments, then some of these individual contract concerns become less dramatic. A better system can elevate average stretches of play. It can make a 7-sack season feel more impactful if the pressure rate improves. It can make linebackers look faster if they're playing downhill instead of reacting. Scheme matters, but scheme alone doesn't fix roster imbalance. That's where front office discipline comes in, and this is where Steelers fans are split. There's a portion that believes the organization needs to shock the system, make a bold trade, shake up the locker room hierarchy, signal a new era decisively. Then there's another portion that believes overreaction is the enemy, that one bad stretch doesn't erase years of elite play, that new coaching can reignite veterans, that financial discipline wins long term. Both sides have logic. The danger is indecision. If the Steelers try to appease both